Well, Casey, it is the most exciting time of the year in the tech industry, which is developer conference season.
That's right. For a lot of people, Kevin, this time of year is about dads and grads. For us, it's about APIs.
So last week we talked about Google's I/O developer conference and everything they showed off. And this week, Microsoft had its big annual developer conference called Build. You did not go in person, did you?
I didn't. And candidly, while I read some coverage of this, I want to learn so much more because, I only had so much time left over after I finished researching the filmography of Scarlett Johansson.
Right. So Microsoft obviously is also very excited about AI. They have been building out a lot of their own AI tools and products and services. And this week at Build, they actually demoed some new hardware that they are making that is sort of built around AI.
Now, isn't putting AI directly into the computers how Skynet began in the Terminator films?
I'm not sure. It's been a while since I watched those movies. But
no.
I think Microsoft gets less coverage by tech journalists like you and me than it deserves, in part because a lot of what they do is like boring enterprise software stuff. But, they are the biggest company in the world, and they have been investing in AI significantly over the past few years. And I would say between their stake in OpenAI and all of their own AI projects, they're just a major, major player in this world.
Yeah, and it's true. I probably don't pay as much attention to Microsoft as I should, and it is for a somewhat selfish reason, which is I just use Macs. And so sometimes it feels like this stuff just is not as relevant to my life. But let's face it, for most of the working world, they are doing their work on a PC. And so if Microsoft says we're putting AI in it, then we should be paying attention.
So to talk about this and everything else that Microsoft announced, we're going to bring on my colleague, Karen Weise, who covers Microsoft for the New York Times.
Yes.
She went to Build, and she's going to tell us all about what Microsoft announced. Karen Weise, welcome to Hard Fork.
Happy to join you guys.
So, Karen, you actually went up to Microsoft's headquarters earlier this week for their annual Build conference. So just set the scene for us a little bit. What was it like? How did it compare to previous experiences?
Well, I think what was unique was on Monday, they tried to really hype this AI PC announcement. And they did something on the campus, like the big headquarters in Redmond, just outside of Seattle. And you had to be in person there. They weren't live streaming it. And Satya was going to give a keynote at it. So it was trying to definitely build attention. And so, they tried, it was like a lot of hoopla, basically. And it was there's a lot of like music in the background and stuff like that. And they tried to recreate the magic, if you will, of when they launched the Bing Sydney chatbot that shall not be spoken of about a year and whatever ago.
Yeah, and that all turned out great. Karen, one of the things that Microsoft announced are these things called Copilot Plus PCs, which, as I understand it, are basically a personal computer, a Windows PC that is basically built to run AI and that runs it very fast and that is sort of all wrapped around the capabilities of these AI models. So what did they actually announce, and sort of how is it different from the Windows PC that people use today?
Yeah, the main thing is that these PCs have a bunch of AI models, AI systems locally on the computer. And they can run different AI tools or models because they have this new type of processor, essentially. It's called bear with me, an NPU, a neural processing unit. And it is very quick with really little drain on your battery, because the problem you have is when you run AI, it's like super intensive, right? It's running all these calculations constantly. And so this is a whole new generation of chip.
I guess I'm just struggling to understand what it means for AI to be able to run locally, because I also have run large language models locally on my hard drive before. And is that what they're saying? Is that if you want to run something like a chatbot, it'll just be much faster to do? Or are there actually capabilities that these will have? Is it going to be so deeply woven into like the operating system that people's experience of their computer will actually change somehow?
Right. So they are hoping the latter. You'll be shocked to hear. But basically, the idea is because there are these things that are run locally, they can have access to information that is only stored locally, and they can be faster and more interactive in a way where, even right now, when you go into a chatbot, you ask your question, right? And it like takes a second and then goes boop, 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 and each little word kind of comes out one at a time. This would speed that all up as well. And so they're hoping that by putting these they have said there were more than 40 models that can kind of come pre-installed, so to speak, on the laptops. And their hope is that developers now start playing with those and build tools off of it. And they liken it to the iPhone, where the iPhone said, oh, wait, here's a, GPS, here's a altitude meter, like whatever kind of tools are in the hardware, people start building it. And then you get Uber or whatever type of system that then made the iPhone this kind of like key platform for people to build off of. And so I think there's a reason why they announced this before their big event for developers, is because they're trying to say to developers, build for this. There's a future here.
Now, I think speed matters a lot. I do think that can really change the way that this stuff gets used, and I could absolutely see this becoming a developer platform. But at the same time, Karen, I am reminded of the last time that Kevin and I went up to Redmond for an event, and we were told Bing has AI now, and AI is going to change everything. And I think we were optimistic that maybe that would be the case. And then you fast forward to today, and Google is still by far the most dominant search engine in the market. So I wonder, as you're hearing this presentation telling us that AI chips inside PCs are going to be a next generation kind of PC that is truly going to change everything, I wonder, what did you think of that?
I think a difference between this and Bing is Windows. So Windows is this ubiquitous operating system that Microsoft controls. So when they announced this, it wasn't just them trying to move from a tiny market share. They have this enormous market share, and they had all of the biggest laptop makers in the world there showing off versions of these devices. So I think they have a power or an influence on the PC in a way that they don't necessarily in search or with Bing. That said, they have to prove the utility of these things. And part of why running the models locally is important is it's cheap, right? You pay for the processor up front when you buy the laptop. But every time you ping it, you're not spending a penny. Whereas if you're inferencing things in the cloud, if you're running things off the cloud, it becomes really expensive for a developer to think, oh, can I even afford to offer this product to people? Now, if they can just do it locally, it might not be quite as good. Like the models, the language models that can run on a laptop now are not as good as GPT-4, but they say about as good as GPT 3.5, which was what ChatGPT was initially launched with. So you can get some like good enough uses is the theory.
Got it.
But again, they have to find the kind of key use cases that will show it. And I was a little surprised. The examples they released with were not. They were clearly trying to demonstrate certain capabilities.
Like what? What did they demonstrate?
Some were a little more speculative and futuristic, saying this is the kind of thing you would be able to do. So like one was a dad speaking with a voice chatbot, essentially asking for help on how to solve the particular Minecraft situation.
No worries. I'm here to help you impress your son. I see you've got a crafting table in front of you, which is a great start. To craft a sword, you'll need some materials. Can you open your inventory? Just press E on your keyboard.
Yeah, do I have what I need?
Let's see. You've got some sticks, perfect for the sword's handle, but it looks like you're missing the material for the blade. You can use wood, stone, iron, gold, or diamond.
And the voice thingy can come in and then say, oh, you need these materials to build this new thing in Minecraft, and therefore, oh, hurry, this thing just popped up. Go run over there and hide in this basement thing. And it was because gaming is real time that you can't do that if you're pinging the cloud. It's part of why streaming games is so hard. And so this was an example of a way where you could bring in generative AI and assistant into like a real live moment, essentially. But that was one of the more futuristic products. It's like not launching with that.
Right. I want to ask about this other feature that they announced that I think got a lot of attention, which is something called Recall. What is Recall?
They liken it to a photographic memory. And it's actually kind of makes sense because what it does is it basically builds a history of everything you have looked at on your laptop.
With Recall, we're going to leverage the power of AI and the new system performance to make it possible to access virtually anything you have ever seen on your PC. It's going to be, honestly, as if you have photographic memory. And the ability to access this memory with simply your words in a form that's natural for you.
And it literally takes constant screenshots of your screen, stores those locally, and then you can ask it, oh, where was that thing that that Kevin sent me that was like kind of weird, and he laughed when he told me about it. And since you and I are, of course, chatting on Teams, Kevin, on Microsoft Teams, it would be like, oh, that we can pull that up here because the transcript says that he laughed in this moment, and you can kind of scrub back and forth in time trying to visually look for what you were searching for.
So basically, if you've always wondered what would it like to have an FBI agent living inside your computer, you can now have that.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Under your control, Casey.
So there's an app called Rewind that has been doing something that sounds very similar to this, but just so I'm clear, this is taking screenshots, it is storing them on your machine, and then it is allowing you to use generative AI to sort of search back through your previous encounters with your computer and say, what was that restaurant menu I was looking at last Tuesday or whatever. But like, I'm curious, Karen, what you think the target audience for this, who is actually going to use this feature, and like what examples did Microsoft give of how it might be useful?
They gave some of kind of personal uses. They had this very funny example of this woman trying to get a like her family trying to get a dress for her grandma. And they talked about how she had searched things online. She had chatted in Discord with her abuela, which I thought was very funny because, like, I know my grandma used to AOL instant message me, but I'm not sure how many grandmas are in Discord. But the idea was that there's this like digital record, and you can go back and be like, oh, what was that sparkly one? And you can use language like that. And because it has visual intelligence, it can go back and look for the sparkly blue dress you had looked for. And then, oh, didn't Abuela say that she actually really liked a pantsuit instead? And then you can kind of find the pantsuit. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of a personal one. Like, I was recently shopping for jeans, and part of me is like, oh, I could see that. Like, where was the jeans that I liked? But also, I'm scared if I were to type in, like, wide leg jeans I was just looking at, how many wide leg jeans would show up. It's kind of mortifying to think about how many wide leg jeans you need to find a good pair.
Totally. So, I can see all of those use cases. At the same time, all of us are journalists. We often talk to people off the record confidentially. We have sensitive information on our laptops. We're not alone in that. I think most people working jobs have some sort of confidential information that is on their computer. So I hear everything that you've just described, Karen, and I think absolutely not. I tried Rewind for a while. I found it terrifying and deleted it from my phone. What is your thinking right now about whether a lot of people are going to be willing to invite this level of surveillance onto their devices?
Yeah, I mean, the default is definitely to take all of it. You can go back in and manually delete certain days. You can have it opt out of certain applications, but like if you're going to opt out of the web search, like that's one of the main uses for it. So it's a big question. That said, it's defaulting to being there. And one of the things when I was kind of researching before this, before the event, was a lot of people haven't interacted with chatbots. They haven't used ChatGPT, but they get a basic Windows laptop from their work. And there's a big old button that says, Copilot on it, and these tools will be there. And for many people, it might be the first time that they really have exposure to it. Also, I'm not sure people will understand the technology behind it, and that it's literally taking a picture of everything that you're doing.
And we should say, like, Microsoft has said that all of these screenshots stay on the device itself. They are not being sent to Microsoft. Microsoft has also said, they're not doing any kind of like content moderation on them. So like if you've been looking at your, bank account information on your PC, they're not going to like scrub that from the screenshots, but that it will all stay locally on the device. And so only the person whose device that is can access that. But I think there are a lot of questions that people will have, especially, if this is maybe a corporate issued computer, does my employer then have the ability to go back and look at screenshots of every time I've ever used this computer?
Of course they will. And as this stuff gets normalized, I can imagine employers handing you your shiny new Copilot Plus AI PC and saying, you have to leave this recall feature on. And then if we ever have a disciplinary issue with you, or we are just suspicious about you for whatever reason, we can review everything you have ever done on your corporate issued laptop. That seems like a nightmare dystopia to me.
And they can search for it easily.
Yeah.
Because they now have the search tool.
Right.
Your only chance to survive that is just that they're using Bing search, which doesn't work most of the time.
Well, Karen, that brings me to one of my other questions about all of this stuff that Microsoft announced this week is like, who is it for? Because I think traditionally Microsoft, a big part of their business is selling to businesses. It's enterprise customers. It's, large companies that already run a lot of Windows PCs that already use Outlook and Teams and all the other Microsoft products, and they can just kind of keep adding to that bundle. So do you see these AI PCs and all the features that are on them as being aimed at businesses, or are they really making a consumer play here?
I initially thought beforehand that it would be more of the businesses. Businesses buy literally the majority of laptops now. When was the last time you guys refreshed your PC? Mine was in 2011, I believe.
You're eligible every 3 years at the New York Times.
Oh, no, my personal one. When was the last time you bought a personal one?
Wait, your PC is 13 years old, Karen?
Are you
What do
running
you use
Windows
it for?
98?
It's a MacBook, and it's lasted, and like for the internet, right? Everything's on the internet that I do now. I'm not like ripping my CDs anymore and taking my music from one thing to another.
You're not mining Bitcoin?
I'm not mining.
Okay. Interesting.
I was surprised, though. They definitely sort of benchmarked it and kind of compared it to the MacBook Airs. So they're smaller. They are lighter. They say they start at $1,000. So they're not like Chromebook prices, but they're also not a MacBook Pro super heavy thing.
Karen, I'm curious how this positions Microsoft against Apple. Apple's having its own developer conference next month, and there's a lot of speculation that Microsoft's announcements at this event this week were sort of designed to kind of take some attention away from anything Apple might announce in just a few weeks. Apple is also expected to do a lot around generative AI in its own hardware products. So what is the competition between Microsoft and Apple like right now?
These chips, these new NPUs, do like propel the performance of these laptops basically in the realm of Apple now. So it's in the same class because they've changed over this chip architecture or style essentially now to a model that actually Apple had been pursuing. So the question is, will people make the jump from one ecosystem to another? Will their employers make a jump from one ecosystem to another? All of that stuff is, I don't know the answer to that. But they are clearly trying to show that they are building like even their hardware with this kind of AI first mentality. And again, if people want that, if they can demonstrate the utility of that, that's like the kind of question about all of this.
Yeah, I just think so much of this is going to depend on how Microsoft implements all this stuff and honestly, like how annoying they are about it. I mean, I have a Windows PC. It's my daily sort of PC that I use. And I would say most of the time I really like it. But then there are just these times when it's very clear that Microsoft is just getting a little bit greedy and they just start popping things up or putting things in weird places. Like the other day, I was using my computer and I got a Skype news alert. Have you seen these yet?
I've seen somebody posting these on Threads, and it's so funny.
It's so funny. I was just minding my own business, doing email. Up comes this little notification. It says, Skype says the U.S. economy added this many jobs last month. And I'm like, why is Skype talking to me? Did I ask Skype to talk to me? No, I did not. But that is just a classic case of Microsoft sort of trying to juice engagement by doing something that I think a lot of people would feel is very annoying. So I can see these AI PCs being very useful, and I want to try one. But I think that if they can't resist sort of, I don't know, just trying to nudge you into using it more and more or in different ways, I think that is going to turn a lot of people off.
I mean, I think a lot of AI things are going to be nudging you more and more because they want discoverability is that phrase that you hear a lot about the features that these things can do. This is a huge Alexa problem, right? People know Alexa can do the timer or whatever, but she can do more, and they want you to do more, but like they got to push it to you. Otherwise, how do you know? So I think that's a very hard urge to resist, even though I completely understand and agree.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin, I'm like you. I would like to give one of these things a try, see what it can do, see how fast this AI is once you get it on the device. But I do continue to have trust issues with Microsoft. This is a company that just last month started testing ads in the Windows 11 Start menu. So every time you go to like look at the programs on your computer now, you might just have to see an ad. And I don't know, the more AI is on my computer, the less I'm excited about a company that is looking to shove ads into different parts of the interface. You know, imagine you're going to, shop for jeans for Abuela, and then, oh, you're looking for that? Well, here's an ad for that now, Karen, right? So there's just a lot of stuff in here that sort of has my my eyebrows arched.
Karen, did you actually get to try any of this stuff? Did you get to get your hands on one of their new AI PCs?
Yeah, they had like a demo station set up. And so like it's populated with like all the demo data. And then so the recall example was hard to know what it would be like when you had a real body of your own data. Would it feel super creepy? Would it be really useful? Would it be not useful because it returns so much information that you can't actually scrub through it all? I understand the problem they're trying to solve with that. Like, I think we all have the zillion tabs open that you keep open just so you don't forget about it. So I understand that like impetus behind it, but it was hard to get a sense for that for me of like, would I personally use this and like it, essentially, because it was just filled with all this dummy content, essentially.
Right, right.
You know, Karen, dummy content was actually the original title for this podcast.
Some people think it still should
Nailed
be.
it.
All right, Karen Weise, thanks for coming.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, that's the end of this clip. If you liked what you saw, head on over to our page and subscribe, and you can get the full podcast. We do a show like this almost every week on tech and the future. Head on over there now and subscribe.